Hi, Jenny. I want y'all to meet my friend Jenny. You probably already know her. I know, but Jenny has some amazing thoughts to share with us tonight. Danny said hi, Jenny.
Hey
Ac-
there.
Actually, she said hi, love. Um, so Jenny, just tell us a little bit about yourself for all my friends here who don't know you.
Well, of course, I'm Jenny. I am, again, the topic tonight is blended families, and I am very much a blended family. I have six kids in total, 26, 22, 19, 17, 14, and my son from my husband is 19 as well. So we're pretty I'm dealing with some adults, not little children, but I miss having little children around. But it's been a challenge getting to know all these different personalities. Um, so y'all pray for me, guys, please.
So, Jenny, tell us, you work outside of the home.
Yes, I do work. I work in healthcare. I work in sleep disorders. And aside aside from that, I love to cook. I love crafting. Those are my outlets to help me keep my sanity. But
And I haven't tasted her cooking, but her crafting is really good.
yeah. But
So
other than that,
creative.
I love to read. I love to just be home. Lately I've been pretty much, enjoying my own peace at home. So that's that's it.
And you just recently sent one of your children to the
Yes.
military.
I recently sent my 19-year-old, he graduated in May. So he's off to the Army. So please keep him in prayer. But I got to talk to him today for about 10 to 15 minutes, but it was a great conversation. So I'm happy to hear that he's missing home. He is. And he says that he's missing my food.
Oh, not your crafting?
Not my crafting, but my food.
That's funny. Hey, all you guys, go ahead and drop in the comments if you are currently a part of or maybe grew up in a blended family. I'm curious how many of us, they say divorce is, so prevalent. So I'm just curious how many of us are either a product of a blended family or currently in one. So go ahead and put that in the comments. I'm curious to see what everyone has to say. I am the product of a blended family. My parents got divorced when I was like 7, and my mom got remarried like when I was in junior high. So there was some adjustment there. I probably wasn't the best stepdaughter. Let's just go there. But um, you know,
I don't
it
believe
is.
it.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you have faith in me. Um, Danny is the product of a blended family and in the process of starting a blended family. That's
Yeah.
right. Danny, you need to be taking notes on what to do and what not to do. All right, well let's just jump in. You tell us the story of how you became a part of a blended family, Jenny.
Okay. Well, of course, my four children are from my past relationship. I was in a relationship with their father for about 15 years. And I grew up, he did it. He stayed still stuck in the past, friends, streets, drinking, alcohol, drugs. So that was not what I wanted for my family. So the decision came, hey, I need to get out of this because, for one, my most important thing was I had sons, and I didn't want my sons to think that his way of treating his family was the correct way to treat a family. and to be the man of the house. That is not what I wanted for them. So decided to leave that relationship. Stayed a single mom for about maybe a year and a half, working 2 to 3 jobs sometimes, staying here, staying there, trying to maintain. So it was kind of difficult, but in a sense that it made me grow. Definitely built my faith up, because if not anybody but God got me through a lot. So then about a year and a half, I met my wonderful, lovable husband now. And we have a daughter together, which is our 15-year-old. When I met him, he actually had, from his previous marriage, he had one son, but was also caring for the other son that was not his as well. So we kind of all blended in together. And it was new. It was something I had never been through, and it was scary. It was scary.
What was
we got through it.
Yeah. And that was 15 years ago?
That was, yes, we're going on 16 years.
What was the hardest in all these years? What's been the hardest part of blending your families?
The hardest part of blending the families is the parenting styles. My parenting style is very nurturing, and I want to love them and hold them. Where on the other hand, Michael's a bit the enforcer. He sets expectations for the kids very high, and he can be pushy on them sometimes, and I think that's where we bumped heads a lot. So, but we're meeting on common ground now. Now that they're adults, it's a bit different. The parenting style has changed, because now it's like we've everything that we've instilled into them, we're having to go back and make sure that, okay, are they following through with what we've taught them?
Yeah.
So for the most part, they are. We have a few hiccups here and there with our oldest, but mom and dad are here. So that's
I love that.
That's the part.
So, what is the biggest mistake you made in blending your families? Like the thing that if you could go back and change it, you would have. I'm asking the hard questions today.
I think the hardest thing, if I could go back and change, with blending our families, I think it would be, let's see. I mean, we've had some challenging times. But I think mostly is I wish I would have never had let my kids, which are from my previous, still have some interaction with their dad, and let him see my current husband as a bad guy. Because we had to struggle with that for a while, where it was like, why is he taking this away from them, or why is he grounding them, or why is he doing this? But it was never a sense of like, he never looked at it as like we were teaching them how to be responsible. We were teaching them how to take accountability for things, and not just thinking that y'all were going to get what y'all want when y'all want it, and there were going to be no consequences for your
Yeah.
So that's
I hear that a lot, that the non-custodial parent a lot of times ends up as like the fun one.
Yes.
Because they don't have to enforce any consequences or anything like that. And I see a lot too, the that dichotomy between the one who is more lenient and the one who is more of a disciplinarian. But, and I think it, like that happens in a non-blended family too. Between my husband and I, same,
Mhm.
right? But I think that it's just in a blended family, you're sort of looking for, or not looking for, but you see those differences a lot more, and you just attribute it to, oh, it's because they're being some kind of way. My kids grew up knowing that I was going to be more lenient. I was going to be probably like crazier, but
Mhm.
their dad was more consistent, but more of an enforcer. Like, this is the way it's going to be. They just grew up with that. Where all of a sudden, when you have a blended family, it's all of a sudden a change. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's
So,
in my case, it was him being the lenient one all the time and not putting rules because they would go over there and then he would be like,
yeah,
why do you do this to them? And why can't they eat this? And why can't they do this? And why are they? And it was always like, why? And I'm like,
yeah,
because we're trying to teach them, I don't want them to be, not saying I didn't want them to not have a fun filled life as a young child, but it was,
right.
you want to teach them respect and responsibility. But
And
since
that when they eat sugar all day long, they're not going to sleep at night, and then they're crazy the next day. Yeah, I get it.
because we didn't have cokes here, but over there it was like,
Yeah.
let's go to dad's house and we could have all the cokes we want.
Did there come a point where you cut off the ties with the dad, or did that just naturally happen?
It actually naturally happened because it was actually on account of him. When things started getting to they started getting older and having to be more involved in their life, with activities that they were in school, and he kind of just backed away from the responsibilities. So we kind of just left it at that. And
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. Hi, Christy.
hi,
Hi
Chris.
guys, sorry. I was I had a dessert fiasco, so I was running behind due to that. Go figure. Who wants to cook? Oh, cooking is overrated. It's like feeding these
I
people. It's just not for me. Not easy.
I agree. I always joke and say I've been redeemed from the curse of cooking. I don't cook anymore.
The girl's mom comes back on Tuesday, and me and her, and we're joking. I don't know, 1 year, 2 years into this, I'm like, oh my god, they got to eat every day, a couple
Right?
times a day. This is like,
What?
forget this. It's too much. No.
It's craziness. Right, right. So Christy has joined us. Christy, we're talking about blended families.
Ah,
Um, why don't you tell us, everybody who's watching, a little bit about yours and Hernan's blended family. Keep in mind that we post this. This does go onto YouTube, so don't be telling everybody's dirty laundry. But as much as you can, tell us about your blended family and how that came to be, and blah blah blah.
So I will first say, when it comes to a blended family, I wish we had the tools back now that we had. I wish we had the tools back then that we have now. We taught a blended family class from the EXO marriage conference, and oh my gosh, we learned a million things. I wish I'd known those things then that I learned a couple years ago. Um, so blended family, wow, one of the hardest jobs because you're not just marrying two individuals, you're marrying two individuals, their children, their exes. It's as much as you want to say, oh, I'm not having anything to do with that person. You are going to have something to do with that person one way or another. We've had a we've had a thing on both sides. We both brought two children to the marriage, and we had a child together. We have a child together, and as a lot of you know our story, here we are. We've been married 26 years, and so our kids were 9 years old and 9 and 6, I guess, 9 and 5.5 when we got together. Um, and you think everybody's doing the same thing, but it can be different. Um, I will say Communication is key. I know a lot of people have probably done this a lot better than I have. I have not been the best at this because I grew up in a family, my parents divorced, and I grew up in a family where my parents didn't talk. They didn't communicate. And so sometimes just because my parents did it a certain way should not have been the way that we did it. And we kind of did it that way. There was a lot of cray cray in my husband's ex-wife's side of the family, I will definitely say. And I was not prepared for that. My mom and dad weren't crazy, but uh, and I don't, this does go on YouTube, it doesn't really matter, but there's a lot of cray cray. Some people knew her, and you just don't know. But I will say, having Jesus in our marriage has what saved our marriage. Um, if anybody knows our testimony, 6 months after getting married, we were getting divorced because we knew we had made a huge mistake, and it was very hard. And it was for the first 5 years, I think it was really, really hard blending families together, kids together, because his kids were being raised one way, my kids were being raised another way. I heard y'all talking about, who was the disciplinary person. Hernan never spanked my children. Never did he ever spank my children, and I did not spank his children. Um, my kids probably wish he had spanked them because I would go cray cray on them because I held my kids to a very, very high standard. And because my stepchildren's life was such a disarray, I did hold my kids on such a tight line for the fact that, and it's not against the children, they were kids, they were innocent kids at the time, but I really tried to keep my kids on a straight and narrow because you're bringing in all this stuff and then it goes out, then you bring it in, it goes out. I think, it's not an easy, and I'm not going to use the word job because marriage, let's be honest, marriage is a job in a sense, but it's two committed parties. And I will say that if any person is considering getting married to a person who has a widow or an ex-wife or a single person with a child, always know kids. Well, I heard Jenny say this too for a second. I didn't have to badmouth my ex-husband. He made decisions, and it got to a point my children did not go. I prayed for my kids to have a good relationship with their dad. That was a choice they had to make with their dad, and luckily they did. He was never a bad person. He was married to work. He chose work. And that's how he grew up. His dad was a provider. He worked a lot. In hindsight, his dad saw himself doing that all over again. And so he would tell him, "Hey, mijo, don't do this, spend time with the kids." As far as the other kids, I will say that it was a very hard battle for them. It was a very hard battle coming forth. I've always been the meeting crazy stepmom. I'll put that out there because that's how I looked, because I was very structured. And when you come from something that's not structure into a position that is, you do look crazy. They're like, why can't we have pudding at 10 o'clock at night? Or what do you mean we can't eat, donuts every single morning, and, things of that nature. And it took a lot of love. It took a lot of time. And it also kind of took putting people at bay. I had to learn it was okay to put people at bay, because whether or not me or Hernan were going to make this, it was going to be me and Hernan. When this was all said and done, it was going to go back to me and Hernan. And it took a long time I can say those things now and it sounds easy. In the midst of saying those, it was very, very hard because, every other weekend, a month or two out of the summer, and my husband felt really guilty. I have to say, Hernan felt so guilty that he didn't take his children. He did not have full custody of his kids. It was a choice. They had a choice to be with us. And their mom wanted to be the friend. And I jokingly told my daughter one day, my older daughter was like, "I'm not your friend. When you're in your 20s, good, we'll be friends at that point. But right now, I'm your mom." And that was a real hard thing that my stepchildren had to realize, that she wanted to be friends and I wanted to be I wanted to carry the parental role. And it took, as some of y'all know our story, we're still blending with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we're still going through.
How old were Hernan's kids I'm not going to say their names. How old were Hernan's kids when you and Hernan got married?
So we actually have three kids that are the same age. His two children and my oldest were almost 9 years old when we
Mm,
got together. And my youngest daughter at that time was 5.5. So we've literally been in their lives since they were,
little.
less than 10 years old.
Yeah. And I can attest that the twins grew up um, in a lot of chaos.
The twins did. The mom made, and I don't knock her. I mean, every woman is very different. And I think I prided myself to be a different way than what she was. She unfortunately, I'm going to say this. She reminded me of my mom. It literally scared me because I would see the things that she did, and I had already gone through that as a young person. And I was like, oh, please don't make those same mistakes. But my mother was a
Yeah.
great deal like her, and it really, I mean, multiple marriages. Matthew and Michelle were bounced around from house to house, um, and that was a lot that went with what their upbringing was so different than ours. Ours was stable. Ours was grounded. Ours was, work, homework, church, activities. Um, it
But now you are a part of breaking that cycle because now
yes.
you have your grandkids that belong to his daughter, Hernan's
Mm-hmm,
daughter.
mm-hmm.
So, and Jenny and I were talking about this earlier before the call that, you know, I know that, you know, everybody says, "Oh, I love them like they're my own." But when the hard times come, that's when I would be tempted to say, "Oh no, Hernan, you need to take care of this. Like this is your daughter."
And I did many a times. So that thing, you love it like your own. I'm sorry. I love all three of my children, love them dearly. But it's a different kind of love for each kid, even though I love them very much so. I would say the relationship that we had was very hard for the fact that there was a lot of resentment. There was a lot of things that the mom did really, and it comes to a point everybody's got to be responsible for themselves, but it carried over for a very long time. Um, I did say those words. I did say those words. I actually said it not too long ago. Not many people be doing what I'm doing. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just trying to keep from going crazy. You know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
my daughter-in-law summed it up one day in the very beginning when we got custody or guardianship of the girls. Um, you're no longer a grandparent in this instance. You're back to being mom and dad, and that was a big pill for me to swallow. And it was like I was at a different part of my life and different things. But I will say that I started raising the girls the way I raised my kids. I went
Yeah.
back to the exact same thing. And yes, I did not handle a lot. They say a lot of these things make you have good character. My character has not been the best. I will not lie throughout this whole process. And the whole point of, saying, oh, I did great. No, I sucked a lot of days. My husband one night was like, I lost it one night 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. I lost it one night. And Herna's like, go to your closet. I'm like, I am not going to pray. You cannot make me. And he was like, you need to go pray so
Don't
bad.
tell me what to do.
And I went in there and I said, you can't make me pray. You can't make me listen to worship music. And I just cried out to God with this God awful
Yeah.
cry. And, God was like, I did not cause this, Christy, but I'm allowing you to go through that. And that's a term I've recently learned that has been mind blowing to me. But yeah, I did throw it up at Hernan, and I'm not very proud to say that. I did throw it up at Hernan quite a bit throughout these last 2 years. This is your kid. My kids would never do this to me. And I pray to God, my children, and Hernan has helped me raise my children. I have to be very
Yeah.
honest. He's been a very good stepfather, a very on hands when I couldn't be at things. My kids never missed having a somebody there because it would be either myself or Hernan would always been there. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And I have to say that, you are breaking that cycle. Like,
Yes.
as much as I know, if you had been able to choose to do it, you might not have, if you had had a choice, you might not have chosen it. but like you're going to be the matriarch that stopped it. And
Yeah,
those
we didn't want to keep
kids,
this going.
yeah, they're going to be able to say, I don't know what my life was before that. Daisy doesn't know what her life was destined to be before. And so, like, just keep that in mind the next time you want to kick and scream that, it's for a good cause. I want to read here what Chris wrote. Chris wrote, I was raised in a blended family and my heart would break for my mom. She was seen as this horrible woman to my dad's kids. She says that though he didn't birth her, it was her dad. So I'm thinking that was like her stepdad, maybe. She was seen as a horrible woman to the dad's kids, and they would treat her like their maid. We did chores and kept our rooms clean. However, when they would come over, my mom became this evil stepmom, and they would demand her clean up after them, even grown. They expect so much from my mom, and no matter how hard she tries, they never see her efforts. It's a hard role, and I give props to everyone that deals with it. That's a really good point. You were both stepmoms, right? And so, as the stepmom, how did it feel to be the evil stepmom? Because chances are at some point you were the evil stepmom. Jenny, why don't you take that one?
I, in my case, I don't, if I was ever known as the evil stepmom, I really don't know about it. Because I know, like, in his home situation, there's a lot there's a lot going on. So most of the time he is, he's more by himself now, or with his siblings. So
Okay.
again, I don't, that's her business. I don't judge her, that's what she does. But when he comes over, I know that he is either in the comfort of being with people around him, as far as talking with people. We include him in things, we take him places. I know I try to make him feel wanted.
So you're the safe place.
Yes. And it's and that's what Michael thanks me for a lot, because he will tell me, thank you for teaching him this, thank you for telling him that, thank you for showing him this. There's a lot of things that him and I have in common. My stepson, we're both learning how to play the guitar. He is,
That's so
and so
cool.
that's something that we conversate about. Or I just recently showed him how to make rice, so he went home this weekend and made rice for his family, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, if they don't like me, they probably don't like me now. But
Right. You're the evil woman who taught him to make rice incorrectly.
So, and I get text messages from him throughout the day, hey, look what I cooked, look what I did, and I'm just like, oh, it kind of warms me. So if I am the evil stepmom, I don't know it. I don't see him being.
I should have known. I should have known you were not evil. That was really dumb of me to even.
She was waiting reserving that for me.
But I try to, because I can remember, me, fortunately, I was grown. Hey, I had my mom and my dad. But I know when I separated from my ex, I remember my feelings, the feelings that my kids had going into, leaving their dad and going into another relationship. So I didn't want to bring that on him. So I kind of wanted to be the comforter for him and treat him the way I treated my kids.
Yeah.
So that was, like I said, if he's ever said anything about me, I do not know.
Okay, so let's forget perfect Jenny.
No, I'm just, he may have been mad a couple of times when he couldn't stay up late to play PlayStation, but other than that, I'm not sure.
What about you, Jenny? Christy, what about you, Christy? Have you been the evil stepmom?
Oh yeah, I've been the evil stepmom because, again, like I said, I gave structure. we had structure here, and they came from no structure. And they, you also have to understand that, my stepson was on Ritalin and clonidine 3 times a day back in the day. So I dealt with not just a regular child, I dealt with a very hyper ADHD, ADD, everything initially you could imagine back then. And
I
we were trying when
remember.
and we would, so during the summers, we would not, we didn't do red, we didn't do caffeine, we didn't do sugar. And then at home, he got everything. So at our house, it was like, okay, we're trying to do certain things. Was I evil? No. Have they ever told me that I was probably evil? No, actually, probably not to my face. But I do know that, when you come from something so different, when you go from one way to another way and it's totally night and day, it's not that you're evil, it's just different,
Yeah.
and especially when you in the kids thing is like, what are your dads supposed to do? Your dad's supposed to be fun and give you everything you want. And then you got this woman over here going, no, you cannot have a fifth bowl of sugary cereal and those kind of things. And we dealt with stealing. We dealt with stealing from my children. And so that really put a hard thing between us because it was a lot of hurt. So I was the one like, if you do that again, I will take you to the police station myself. I will turn you in. I will do a lot. And these were when they were younger. So yes, I probably was definitely the evil step person or looked at as evil step person. But I also can say that as time went by, I was a stable person.
Hmm.
When it came to something happening to the girls, it was no question they would be here because it was stability, it was
Yeah.
structure, it was safe.
Yeah. Christina said, I heard someone say that they knew their stepmom was great, but they felt a betrayal to their mom that they liked her better. So they treated her bad because they felt it was their way of showing their mom loyalty. They were never told it was okay to love her too. I feel like that's huge. And I
It
want to
is.
ask you guys like what advice you would give. Like we know we have Danny on the call. Danny is about to enter into a blended family. And so I think that like that's great advice. If you're going into a situation where there's going to be a step parent, like if it, okay, like let's say, um, Jenny, if your ex had remarried, for you to say to your kids, hey, it's okay to love this person. And that's why, I hear people, instead of calling it a step mom, they call her a bonus mom because it's like
In
there's a
addition.
bonus. Yeah, this is like, yeah, you have me, but you also have her. You're just double blessed. I've heard some people call it a step up mom because this is someone who has agreed to step up and love you like I love you. And so I think that's really good advice is giving the other person, giving the kids permission to love that person, you know?
I
So
think it's
I
important
Yeah.
to have that a unified thing. I think it's good for, I see a lot of healthy relationships with additional families where they celebrate holidays together, they celebrate birthdays together, they become a unified, not just a unified front, but it's a unified family because you're going to be in these people's lives no matter what. Sorry,
yeah.
guys, granddaughter number one is screaming.
Yeah.
Hi Daisy.
Sorry.
Well, and I think like I was told my kids, the more people that there are to love you, the better, you know? Like they would go to they would
Just gotta
go over
close the
to
door and come back.
they would go over to grandma's house and she would spoil them and I would say that's fine. It's fine. When you go to grandma's house, eat whatever, do whatever. I'll fix it when you come home, you know? Because just if that's grandma's way of showing love, then let's go. Let's do it. I'll fix it when you get home. Carola, so Ruby says, I remember my neighbor always referring to her stepmom as my mother. They had such a beautiful relationship. I thought that was lovely, the way it should be. Yeah, I mean, I think so many times you take into like you have all the baggage from that relationship with your ex, and you're still holding on to that, rather than knowing when to just cut bait and say, you know what, that's over and done with. I'm not in a relationship. I'm not in that kind of a relationship with them anymore. So I'm not taking that baggage into it, you know? So let's talk about advice. What advice would you give someone who is going into a relationship that's going to be a blended family? Christy, let's start with you.
So I would say there are things now available that weren't available back in the day when her and I got together.
Yeah.
The XO does have Jimmy Franklin does have a class for blended families. And I have note of workbooks. If anybody wants them, they're more than welcome to them. It does help. It does help. It does help to come into agreement. You don't have to be friends with them, but being a united front with everybody, being on the same page is very helpful because the kids are going through enough. They've already had families separate for one reason or another. Kids, a lot of kids think it's their fault sometimes, or they're confused, all this other stuff. So I think one, having Christ in your marriage, in your relationship, is the first and foremost thing a person can do, because sometimes you're bringing kids that don't have Christ in their life into your life, and just being Jesus with skin on is one of the things that should be done first and foremost. Second of all, having open communication. It's okay to agree to disagree with the other parent, and I agree with you. You don't have to have ongoing conversations if it's an unhealthy relationship. You get past it. You're no longer with that person. You're
Yeah.
getting your happily ever after. But if at all possible, within healthy boundaries, and boundaries are the most important thing when it comes to this, because sometimes exes are exes for a reason, and it's okay to say, you know what, we don't have to have communication. We're just going to deal with our children. But while the children are there, no going crazy on the ex or the new spouse or whatever. Just having a safe space that the children can be a part of, and just be normal kids,
Yeah.
depending on the age that they're in. I know Danny is going to be a great bonus mom
Mhm.
to Derek's children, just for the fact because she carries so much love. Don't be, you're not in competition with nobody. That ex-wife
Yeah.
or that other person is not your competition. It's just, they're an extension of you,
Yeah.
and I wish we could have done a lot of things differently back in the day. I can't go back and change it now, but I will say that, having a support group to lean on, other parents that have gone through this, is so much stronger. It makes you a healthier person. It makes you a better relationship.
That's good advice. Chris says, my family is a different type of blended, which hers definitely is. However, we allow their bio grandparents and aunts to be included with boundaries, of course. But we always say that we aren't going to turn away someone that wants to love them. And that's good. She's got little kids, little bitty kids. And so, the more normalcy that you have when you have grandparents and aunts that are a positive influence on them. Having boundaries, I think, is so important because, like you said, there was a reason that that's your ex. And sometimes that reason is because they're a fool, you know? And so if they're a fool, there are different boundaries than then if they're just a normal person that you just, were mismatched or whatever. So, Jenny, what about you? What advice would you give someone?
I agree 100% with Christy on the boundaries part. Because again, yes, they are exes for a reason. And I know in the beginning it was hard to establish those boundaries because it was like, oh, he still thought we were friends. He still thought this, this, and that's my family. But I was like, hey, buddy, this is this. We gotta put this, I can't, no stepping on my toes. I'm not gonna step on your toes.
Yeah.
But again, Danny, I know she's gonna be great, and I can say patience. I know for me, it was another thing that Michael and I agreed on is not to talk about that kind of stuff when it comes to the other parent in front of the kids,
Yeah.
because you don't want them to feel some type of way if they, something were to slip, and then, they have these thoughts towards you, and then you're sitting there wondering, like, what did I do? What did I say? Did I say something wrong about their mom? Did I say something wrong about their dad? Because
Yeah.
again, they're coming in. You want to create that safe space for them. And I in my case, I found out, just kind of talk to them, see what they like, what interests them, and even sometimes having a conversation about what they like, it makes a difference. It makes a lot of difference, because you want them to feel included, because then again, you're both going into each other's world. They're coming into yours, you're going into theirs. You have thoughts, they have thoughts, and there's got to be some way to mend those thoughts with each other, thoughts, feelings, and it's not always going to be one big happy family. Whoever said that lied. But at least you can create peace. So that's the big thing. But again, I think it's more of being patient and communicating. When something is bothering you, I when something is always bothering me, I tell Michael, hey, I don't like this, or I don't like this. I think we should this, or I think we should do that. And you guys work with it together. Because it's hard to be there sitting in the unknown, and you thinking that he knows what you're thinking, and you're really not thinking that.
Yeah.
So,
girl, that is not just for blended families. I really like that about, like, you asking them what they like, because you can't just rely on the relationship that, like, you couldn't rely on the relationship that Michael has with his son. You have to develop your own relationship. That's really good, because, if he didn't have a really good relationship with his son, or if he didn't know some things about him, then you're establishing your own relationship. And I think that's why you're a safe place for him, because you took the time to develop that relationship yourself. So I think that's really good advice right there. You're full of good advice. Such wisdom. Such wisdom. Well, ladies, before we call it quits, is there anything that y'all wanted to add?
I will say that it's, when you're going into a blending family, be their biggest cheerleader. If at all possible, you don't got to be best buds with everybody as far as, the other people. Having, being cordial, if you're able to have that kind of relationship, praise God. I've seen a lot of people out there that have the awesome relationship, both sides of the family, bonus moms and everybody. And I applaud that. I really do. I applaud that. I think it's a foreign thing to a lot of people, but I think it's an awesome thing that they are able to do that. But most importantly, just cordial, no backbiting. The divorce is over, you've moved on, and especially for those that haven't. For a moment, for the parents that haven't moved on, one of the parents haven't, and the other parent has. That's okay. You'll find that relationship when you're ready. But you know, for the sake of the children, remember that, they didn't ask for either of this. They didn't ask for the divorce. They didn't ask for the marriage. But nonetheless, they need to be loved all the way around. They need to be shown love, because their life's been turned upside down enough as it is. But, having Christ in your life, sharing the gospel with them is the best thing you can do, period. This really is.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Definitely true. If you're the one that introduces them to Christ, or even if you're just the one that is consistently showing them Christ, then that's always, always, always going to be a positive influence. So that's really good. Before we call it quits, does anybody have a prayer request? Go ahead and put it in the comments. I'm just going to remind everybody that on Saturday at 10 o'clock at Los Cucos, we will be having our story brunch. So be there at 10 so that we know, so that you can sit with us. It'll be fun. We always have a good time. We always have great conversation. And, it's one thing to see people like here on the screen and hear their stories, but it's another thing to sit with them and face to face hear what they have to say. So, ladies, thank you for joining us. Great chat. I love doing this because I feel like all of my friends on Facebook get to meet my friends on Zoom, and it's just so much fun. So I'm going to pray. Lord, we bring True and her family to you. We know that you're doing a great work in them, God. We know that you're doing a great work in True's health, in her job, all of it, Lord. You're just bringing it all together. Your plan is working out in her life, and we thank you for that. Lord, for all of the ladies who are represented on this call, I pray that you just prosper their families. Lord, meet every need, whether it be a financial need, a relational need, a health need, whatever it is, Lord. I pray that you just work in their lives. Lord, draw each of us closer to you in a way that we cannot deny. Lord, instill in us a passion and a thirst for your word, a passion and a thirst for more time with you. Lord, continue to instill in us the talents that you've given us and encourage us to use those talents to work for others. Lord, I thank you for the two ladies that are on this call and for the beautiful homes that you have given them, for the beauty, the families that are just being nurtured in there. Lord, I thank you that you have specifically made Christy a cycle breaker, Lord, that it is going to end with her, that the plan that the enemy had for this entire generation of girls in this family, it's over and done with. So, Lord, I pray that you strengthen her. Remind her on a daily basis that she is doing your work, that she was created for such a time as this. But Lord, give her the strength to carry this through to the finish, to continue to raise these girls for the time that you've given her, and to become a mentor for Michelle when she comes home. Because, Lord, I believe that you have given Christy everything that she needs to carry out this task. For Jenny, Lord, I pray that as her son is gone away to the army, that you give her the strength that she needs to be there for him, the strength that she needs to show Christ to him. And Lord, I thank you for Michael and for the strength that he is for this family. Bless them all in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, ladies.
Mhm.
Always good to talk to y'all. Enjoy the rest of your night and thanks for your time.
Too.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.